Hello, and you are probably watching this because you just came from the instructables page. And what I'm going to show you today is how to create a detachable base figurine with any RPG figurine that you start with. So, first of all, I'm going to be using Blender today. I have 2.79 version. Um, and I don't have the latest because I had issues running it. Anyways, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to delete the extra stuff I got around here. And I'm going to go ahead and pull in through import the STL files. So I'm going to go into that. So I'm going to pull in a character today that I made on Hero Forge. Go ahead and check them out. I'll have a description down, the link below. They have some awesome stuff. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and separate the current base because this is all one piece for printing. So I'm going to go into create and bring in an object. It can be most any objects, just make sure that it fits. Task with a flat top for cutting. So I'm going to hit S for scale, and then we go at scale in the X direction. Drag that over here. And then I go ahead and scale that in the Y. And position it. And position that right at the bottom of his feet, but enough to cover all of the base. The music I have playing today is called Bardcore. Essentially, they take music, whether modern or old, and they play it using all the classic medieval instruments, which is pretty great. Gets you in the mood for D&D. Alright, so now I have that. I'm going to go ahead and go back to my original character 3D image here. Go over to the modifiers. I'm going to go into Boolean and I will do a difference and take the cube. And when I do that, as I hide the cube, you'll see that I no longer have a base. So that's exactly what I want. So to do what it wants, I can go ahead and delete that. Now I'm going to go ahead and import the organizer file. Go to STL and navigate to the organizer. So here. So I bring that in. I'm going to grab my character and I drag it over using these little arrows. If you're not familiar with Blender. Bring it over here. I'm going to hit R for rotate about the Z axis, so I hit Z as well. And then I'm going to ahead and hit R, and I'm going to rotate about the Y axis by hitting the Y key. Put that over here. So here in the organizer, I'm sure you probably know, but here's where the dice go, here's where your character goes. Then over here on the left is where you put a little journal for documenting all your adventures. So here we go, I have it positioned inside here. Looks like it's going to fit pretty well. It will probably be angled a little bit, but it should fit just fine once I get it printed. So I know I don't have to scale this down or up. Depending on your character, if it has weapons hanging way outside or has its arms up or a cape and stuff like that, all those things increase the overall size of your object and its limitations to be within this box. So if you want it to fit in the box and standing beyond, you can either cut those parts off, similar to the way I just showed you with cutting out the base, or you can shrink the whole part down, or a combination of the two to make it fit here. So that'll probably work just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that organizer. Before I do that, I'm going to hit Control Z a bunch of times to get my character back to where it was, and then I'll delete the organizer. Don't need that. I've already done my verification. That's going to fit. So now I'm going to go back into File and Import. I'm going to import some bases. So in the instructables description, I do have a link to file on to My Mini Factory, in which there is a 24mm base that you can download. It's called 24mm Bases 1, or I guess probably not the one. But it gives a bunch of free bases that you can use that are supported with the intention of printing on a Elegoo or some other liquid resin based 3D printer, but it has a lot of varieties. So I'm going to go ahead and use the wood base and import that STL file. Now here, it's a way over here. I could click and drag using these little drag things I did before. Instead, I'm going to go to Object and Transform and put the object to the origin. Make sure you do have it selected before you do that, so it's in position. Now I'm going to hit R. Now I'm going to type. I'm going to hit the Y key. I'm sorry, X key. It's the red line. And then I'm going to type in 90 to rotate it 90 degrees. And now that's in position, or correct orientation at least. Use the Z arrow to drag it down so it's just in position where I wanna. That looks like it's going to fit just well. Cool. So now I'm going to go ahead and under the Create tabs here on the left hand side, I'm going to bring in a cube. Drag that over to position. I'm going to scale it up so I can see it. Yeah, it's not far enough over. And I'm going to go ahead and go to the wood base. I'm going to hide that. I don't need to look at that right now. Now I'm going to position this cube to be right underneath one of the feet. On most figurines, especially if they have 2 feet, best place to put the pegs for connecting is under the feet. I'm not going to bother with this bottom of the pitchfork here. It's just too narrow and it's not going to work out too well when I go to print. So I'll position that. I'll go a little higher. Now I'm going to hit the Z key to look through everything, get rid of that shading part. And then I'm going to scale this cube along the Y to make it thinner so it fits in the foot. Get my position off somehow. Alright. That's much better. Alright, I'm going to go and rotate about the Z axis to line it up with the foot. That looks pretty good. I'm going to make sure to keep the surfaces flat with the base. And then I'm going to scale this up just a bit more. Isn't that underneath? I'm going to scale them more along the X-axis, hitting the X key. That looks pretty good. I like that. And make sure that it is all underneath. Looks like it may be a little off. So I'm going to put it a little farther forward. I may have it too big. Taking a little long doing this. Alright. I'm going to go ahead and scale down along the Z axis, hitting S to scale and Z there. Now that's going to be pretty good. So it's about the same height as his overall foot area. There should be about the right amount. I am bringing back that wood base. Should be piercing through it about halfway, so I guess I got a little too much here. S and the Z, use that a little more. Yeah, that's better. Hide the wood base, raise up the height to make sure it intersects with the foot. That looks great. So I hit Control Z and then Control V. I got a copy now. Go put this one underneath the foot, rotate about the Z, line that up. Okay. How's that looking? That looks pretty good. That'll work out. Just a touch. Yep, okay. Now I've got those lined up. That's great. I'm going to go ahead and hit Control C, Control V to make another one. Oops. If you have a cursor on the right hand side, it won't recognize it. Control C, Control V. There you go, got another one. Now I'm going to size this up. You can see here in the scale section over here, I want to scale it up overall in all directions about 20%. For me, when I'm 3D printing, 20% gives enough gap. So when there's the tolerance, the pegs will fit just right into the holes of the base. For others with different precision 3D printing, you might need to scale it up only 10% or maybe scale it up more. So you might have to do some trial and error, but 20% works for me. So this one's close to 1. I'm going to use that as reference. Scale it up to about 20. And then go to the other cube, which is this side. Control C, Control V. That's cube 3. And here, I'm going to scale it up overall about 20%. There you go, that's close enough. And then I'm going to pull in, I'm going to hide those two. And then the first two bases, which are the smaller ones, I'm going to go ahead and do what I did before. And I'm going under Modifier, selecting my main person, and I'm going to go to Boolean, and I'm going to hit Union this time. So I'm going to do a union on the first one, hit Apply. And now, even if I hide that first one, I still see that resin. I still see that shape attached to the bottom of his foot, so that's great. And then I'm going to do this again for the other one. So Boolean, Union, go to that second one, hit Apply, and now that one should also be there. So I can go ahead and delete these first two that I made. I no longer need them for modifying the shape. Now if I erase that or hide it, all of it goes away together. Alright, next I'm going to go ahead and bring in the other two cubes and the wood base. I can hide my character, done with him. Now I'm going to take the wood base, I'm going to do a Boolean modifier again. This time I'm going to do a difference, just like in the beginning, when cutting off the base. And I'm going to subtract any one of the cubes I got left. Apply. And I'm going to do that again. Difference. Cube 3. Oops. Now, as you can see here, when I subtract those, I have empty holes in there, which is great. That's exactly what I wanted. And there he is. All done. So I'm going to go ahead and clean up a little bit. Delete those cubes, they did their job. And now I'm going to go ahead and save my file. If you're a diligent person, you probably should have saved a lot earlier. I'm going to go ahead and name this Tutorial Detachable Base. I did 1 for a previous trial, so I'm going to do 2 for this one. Save that Blender file. Now, if I export this as an STL file from Blender, it's going to export both top and bottom pieces at the same time as one STL file, and I don't want that. So I'm going to go ahead, and now that I've already saved, I'm going to go ahead and delete this wood base, and then I'm going to export as an STL file. Go ahead and say that this is a tutorial detached base. Did name it 2. So this is 2 part A. Export that STL. And then hit Control Z. I got my wood base back. Now delete the character. And I'll export as an STL. And to tutorial 2 part B. And I've got both of them exported. So I'm going to hit Control Z. I can go ahead and save that if I want, just so I can come back and maybe modify some of these sides to reduce them if I need more gap between the pegs and the base holes, or I can increase them to reduce that clearance, whatever's needed, based on my upcoming print. But that's it. And so I'm going to go ahead and just do a quick finish here and show you the 2 STL files. I have a Flash Forge, so I'm going to be using this. There's standard software that come with. I know a lot of other people use other softwares, but go into navigate here. Now the ones I put in here, 2A and 2B. Go and bring in both of those. Yeah, that's fine. I'm going to move around. Just show you the bottom here. And grab the correct rotating circle. There you go. There's the pegs. That looks great. And you can see here the different navigation features per program. I just get those mixed up. So that looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and just supports. Just for kicks and giggles here, let's go ahead and go back, go to print. Just make sure that when you do printing that you go ahead and double check that these added shapes or subtracted shapes do show up correctly in the 3D print. So check out your layers, make sure they show up cleanly, which they do. So that's great. And that's it. Thanks everyone.